So, have you ever heard of something called melatonin? What do you know about melatonin? Most people, when I ask them that, they say it's a supplement. Melatonin is a supplement I saw at the health food store. I've tried it. It either works really well or it didn't work for me. And that's the answer I usually get. Now, melatonin is actually a hormone that somebody figured out how to put in supplement form. And actually, the body can then absorb it as if it's a nutrient. Melatonin is a pretty fascinating little hormone. I shouldn't say little, but I see it as little. You look at the endocrine system, and honestly, the melatonin didn't even make it onto the chart that I showed you in the very first video in this series. I like to think of melatonin as our circadian rhythm, our main circadian rhythm hormone, because when it comes to circadian rhythm, that's a whole lot of hormones interacting with one another in a very intimate way to give us certain things within a 24-hour cycle. Now, this video is going to be a little less pharmacological, and it's going to be a little more philosophical, because I don't have a whole lot on the circadian rhythm that's as concrete as something like all the different kinds of estrogens or dihydrotestosterone or whatever. But our melatonin is produced in the brain as a result of being in the dark, which means our melatonin, which is our sleeping hormone, is produced when it gets dark and quiet and calm. Many of us have trouble sleeping, so when we put it in those terms, dark and quiet and calm, you know, some of us are lucky enough to be able to get dark and quiet and calm all at the same time. Some of us are not as lucky. So sometimes we have to work a little extra hard and put more effort into this aspect of our circadian rhythm, our sleeping time. Okay, so what does melatonin then have to do with our sleep, our REM sleep? We talk about REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, okay, REM sleep. Because the brain has different phases, okay, and we talk about the REM sleep, we want to get into REM sleep. And some of us have those little Fitbit thingies, and we've got our monitors on at night, producing a couple of microwaves from our wrist. The thing about the brain, and this is where we don't have medical literature just yet that I've found, but I'm using my logical mind. And we talk about brain waves. Brain waves, what do you think those are? What's an electrocardiogram do? An ECG checks our brain waves. An ECG checks our heart, the electrical conductivity in our heart, electrocardiogram. But there's an electroencephalogram, EEG, for our brain. Okay, so it's checking our brain waves. And how's it checking our brain waves? It's checking frequencies. It's the thing that goes right. You see the ECG? You see that on like Grey's Anatomy. Did you beep? Right? Right? They're in a heart attack. Or they're not really in a heart attack. Whatever. I'm not going to question Grey's Anatomy's accuracy. Not in this video. Maybe I'll do one on that one. Okay. Back on topic. Melatonin, brain waves, electrical frequencies, REM sleep, alpha brainwave activity, beta brainwave activity, gamma brainwave activity, hypnotic state, alert state, where our analytical brain is very active and our mind is running. We're stuck in alpha, right? When we're in a nice, skilled meditative state that we've been practicing for the last 6 months, and we've finally been able to take a journey with our sleep app. We get ourselves in a nice hypnotic state voluntarily. We activate that frequency in the electrical conductivity in our brain. My goodness, this sweet little hormone that we put in a supplement and try and take to help us sleep, that just got complicated quick, didn't it? Melatonin is very intimately connected to how our brain is electrically transmitting stuff. And why is the electrical so important in our brain? Because brain waves are electrical. That's our electricity. Our brain is our central nervous system. Our brain's our central nervous system. It's the main electrical box in our body. We are powered by electricity, just like our computer is, just like our Wi-Fi router is. Now, I'm not making any claims because I don't have science to back it up just yet. I'm just using my logical mind. Our nervous system, particularly our brain, runs on frequencies, just like our heart does. The electrical box in our heart, our pacemaker. What do you think that is? It's our electricity. What do you think powers it? Our nervous system. What do you think powers our nervous system? Our brain. We got to somehow get our brain waves to rhythm so that melatonin can be produced. We literally need to get our brain waves to sing to our pineal gland so that it produces melatonin. So when you put it in those terms, it kind of changes things around, doesn't it? Because I'm an old Celt. In an old Celtic tradition, there are 4 directions on a medicine wheel. Does this sound familiar from another tradition? Our most basic teachings reside in all of the old traditions. And I love this one. I love this one because it really speaks to the circadian rhythm. Our melatonin gets produced in the north direction of our 24-hour cycle. Where the stone, where the earth is predominant, is the predominant element in that quarter of our 24-hour cycle, where we are at rest, where we are in our dream state, processing our life experience, where our body's processing its life experience, where our nervous system is rebooting, where all of those in the brain is causing detoxification of the liver, detoxification of the kidneys, cleaning up of the lymphatic system, changing the pH in our muscles so they're not sore in the morning. All of this stuff, all this cleansing, all this rest occurs. And our melatonin is a very big part of that process. The morning time is very much a mental time. That's when our brain waves are the most active in the analytical aspect of our brain. Late morning, early afternoon, that's our doing time. That's our getting it done. So along this pattern of our natural state of our brain waves, we shall see an old tradition. The teachings try to encourage us to keep us balanced in the center of our circle by honoring the different phases of the nervous system within our circadian rhythm, where melatonin and cortisol work very closely together. Elevations of cortisol do what to melatonin? Decrease it. What does decreased melatonin do? Our brain's going to be more active in the analytical. It's going to be more alpha beta dominant brain waves. Okay? In the morning, we're to plan our day. We're to look at things. We're to understand. We're to gain understanding of things. We're to look at the day or look at whatever comes to mind and have a very high analytical, active, sort of mental clarity time. Now, I'm not saying that this is like what you have to do. There's shift workers, there's this, there's that. The body is very resilient. I'm just explaining the circadian rhythm in the best way that I have access to, and that's not medical literature. Traditions speak to the circadian rhythm much better, which is why I'm bringing the traditions in, and I'm an old Celt, and so that's why I'm using it predominantly. Okay, in the next part of our day, we get on that bicycle and we ride. We get on that surfboard and we surf. We get our shoes on and we run. We get in the car and we go. Now things are going to blend into each other because we have a society that doesn't necessarily honor the circadian rhythm. So we got to work within it. And we can. And that's my job, is to take the circadian rhythm. If you're having sleep problems or cortisol problems, my job is to help you establish the best circadian rhythm possible with the life circumstances that you've been given, with the cards you've been dealt. To play the cards you've been dealt the best way possible. All right, so let's go look at the circadian rhythm from just a sort of a typical standpoint of like, oh, in a perfect world, we could all do this. And the body would be able to sleep really well and just the brain would be super happy and balanced. We'd be all healthy and no problems at all. Okay, morning time, thinking analytical. Afternoon, late afternoon, like early evening, doing. This is where you got to cut, this is where you want to maybe cut off the analytical and the planning aspect of the day. A lot of us will take the east and bleed it into the south. And what I mean by that is we'll take all our planning of our day and we will continue to plan our day as we start doing our day. Do you have any idea how exhausting that is? You talk about cortisol production. You're going to push your cortisol so hard when you do that. Trying to have two parts of the brain active at the same time. I'm going to plan and I'm going to do it at the same time. It's absolutely exhausting to the endocrine system. And it produces a crap ton of cortisol. So be careful with that. Be careful with that. Try to have the confidence, if you can, try to have the confidence to plan as much as you can, but try not to make it so perfect all the time. I love song lyrics, and I do find them very helpful in my life. And Bono once said, a really popular song, what you don't have, you don't need it now. And what you don't know, you can feel somehow. So if you're having sleep problems, the first thing I would encourage you to do is look at that. Look at the morning to afternoon time and ask yourself, if you're continuing the planning and organizing of your day while you're trying to also do your day. Because if you are, it might be affecting your ability to sleep and settle the mind down later. So try and have the self-confidence, the trust in yourself to shut down that planning and making it perfect, and just whatever you got at like 11 a.m., go with it. Just do your day. Get on that bicycle, hands up off the steering wheels and just down the hill. Whee! Like, let's do this. Let's get on that surfboard and let's focus on staying on the surfboard. Let's focus on staying on the bike and keep the bike balanced. Let's get the work done and focus on the work so the work gets done well. And don't have half of your brain somewhere else planning the next thing. Do what you're doing. Focus on what you're doing. Let your brain waves do one thing at a time. Quit trying to push two brainwave activations at the same time. You're going to produce cortisol in that state. You're going to push yourself into a state of high stress, eventually leading to fatigue. So that's just a little pearl of wisdom that I'm super passionate about because I see it a lot. Not that that's a flaw. It's just that we don't realize what we're doing. So we put it in that perspective. Okay, Maybe I can do something about my sleep, but let me look at a different part of my day, because that circadian rhythm is important. Because when it comes to cortisol, cortisol is supposed to be elevated at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you're a shift worker, or if your day starts at a different time than your typical 9 to 5er, that's okay. Okay? Find your 8 a.m., whatever that is. Maybe your 8 a.m. is 11 p.m. for you. That morning time, where you're like an hour or two and you've been up for an hour or two, that's your 8 a.m. Find it, define it, whatever time of day it is, that's your peak cortisol. That's when your cortisol, your performance hormone, is supposed to be highest in the day. And then later in the evening, your evening, whatever that is, it's okay. Just find your own rhythm. Doesn't have to go with the sun. The cortisol is supposed to be at the lowest. So if we're in that typical 9 to 5 kind of day with the sun, whatever, like old ways, great, awesome, cool, whatever. Then 8 p.m. is going to be your low, and it's going to keep going low, and then it's going to come up again. Okay, so you've got this cortisol. So what can happen is that your cortisol, you call it your cortisol curve. It's nice and high a couple hours after you've been awake. You do your day. It starts to drop off so that eventually you can go to sleep, because cortisol is not circulating through your body. It's done for the day. You got melatonin instead. Maybe you can think of melatonin as the anti-cortisol. That's a good way to look at it. Unfortunately, what can happen in adrenal fatigue or in high cortisol production, or when we're trying to push our day in the wrong direction, is what we'll do is we'll accidentally flip our cortisol curve. And so our cortisol is low in the morning and it's too high at night. So that what we end up with is fatigue in the morning, and we just can't get it together, and we're hitting snooze. We're not hungry. We don't want to eat breakfast. Our blood sugar gets all wacky, which causes cortisol spin out. I'll bring it on back. So that sometimes I actually have to flip that cortisol curve back so that your morning cortisol is nice and strong like it's supposed to, and that your evening cortisol is nice and relaxed like it's supposed to. Because oftentimes I'll see a patient who comes in like this. Tired all day, second wind, can't sleep. Mind just goes and goes and goes and goes. Stuck in alpha. The electrical conductivity of the brain. What else runs on electricity? Lights, phones, video games, televisions, Wi-Fi routers, microwaves. 5G is a form of microwave. That's what that is. It's a form of microwave. It's just a different, it just vibrates a little different than the microwave, but it's the same thing. Solar radiation is a type of microwave. Alpha, delta, gamma, microwaves. It's just a way to describe electrical frequencies. So that's sweet little melatonin that the brain produces might just be the anti-cortisol. So look at it. It's not so simple. It's not so sweet. It is sweet. When you get lots of melatonin and you can sleep, oh boy, let me tell you, it is sweet. It is sweet. To get a beautiful night's sleep, it is sweet. It's a journey to get there. Look at it. Look at it curiously. Don't look at it from a state of fear and stress. You're just going to produce more cortisol. How do you stop producing cortisol? Get out of the state of fear and stress. How do you get out of the state of fear and stress? Quit bracing yourself. Open up to life. Look at different options. Get curious. Get curious of what different options there are out there. And then maybe look at what might be inhibiting the melatonin production. And what maybe could be done from a logical, rational standpoint in a way that hits you in your gut and says, you know what? Remember when she said that in that 20-minute video she just made about melatonin? That one hit my gut. I better look at that. I'm going to get curious about that because something happened in my body. It was subtle, but something went ding, 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 ding. I am going to get curious about that. I'm going to look at it. And maybe that's how I start my journey back to good, healthy, glorious sleeps. And if nothing dinged in this video, well, trust me, I got a lot more to say about melatonin. But I'm going to end it here for now. Have a lovely evening.